What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and we have a lot to get to. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So I'm going to be fully transparent with you. Right behind you is my television screen here in my office. The Red Zone channel is on. It is 3:35 p.m. Central Standard Time on Sunday, January 1st, 2023. As I record this, a very happy new year to you and yours. And I say all of that because things are likely going to change by the time you watch this, whether you watch this on Sunday afternoon, Sunday night, maybe you get to it Monday morning, Monday afternoon, whatever the case may be. Please make sure to consider everything that we're going to talk about here in this video because it is an active situation. And we are, of course, talking about the NFL, the NFC, the Dallas Cowboys, the playoff picture. Week 17 is coming to a close. There is, of course, still 1 week left in the regular season. We all know that the Dallas Cowboys got the win on Thursday Night Football against the Tennessee Titans. A lot of people ungrateful for it and the way that it unfolded, but I bet watching all of the chaos on Sunday afternoon, you were very happy that the Cowboys were already safely in the clubhouse with a win in the penultimate week of the regular season. But the Cowboys picked up some important help along the way on Sunday afternoon. Let's get to the most important thing. The Philadelphia Eagles lost to the New Orleans Saints. Cannot believe it. It was so shocking. I'm sure a lot of you are going to say, I can't believe it, blah, blah, blah. Whatever the case may be, whether you thought it was going to happen or not, the Eagles' loss keeps the Cowboys alive. We talked about last week, actually 2 weeks ago, with the Cowboys losing to the Jacksonville Jaguars. That locked Dallas into the 5 seed if they did not win the NFC East. And for a few weeks now, the Cowboys have kept their hopes alive. They've obviously done the work themselves, the Cowboys have, by beating the Eagles on Christmas Eve and beating the Tennessee Titans a few days later on Thursday Night Football. The Eagles obviously lost to the Cowboys on Christmas Eve and lost to the New Orleans Saints. The Eagles have dropped 2 chances in a row to not only clinch the NFC East, but clinch the number 1 seed in the NFC as a whole. They are 0-2 in those particular games. So the Eagles now have kept the Cowboys alive. The Cowboys are not going to be in a position in Week 18 to rest their starters. We had talked about that many different times. That will not be the case. Now, I say that and I do not know when the games are going to be in Week 18. In case you do not know, the NFL waits until all of Week 17 is ultimately done, or the most of Week 17 at the very least. This is an interesting week because Monday Night Football isn't going to really change things. Both the Bills and Bengals are going to be in the playoffs. But my point is the NFL is going to announce when these games are going to take place. There will be Saturday games next week, and there will be Sunday games. But there is no way that the NFL puts the Cowboys after the Eagles. I would be stunned. I'm not going to say I would eat anything, but it would be very shocking if that happened because the NFL does not want the Cowboys to be in a position. They don't want any team to be in a position because it would be it would be a competitive disadvantage. Honestly, it would be a competitive disadvantage if the Cowboys played after the Eagles and knew that the Eagles won and therefore didn't have to play their starters or whatever you want to call it. So the Cowboys and Eagles will likely play in parallel next week. And if the Philadelphia Eagles lose and the Dallas Cowboys win, the Dallas Cowboys win the NFC East. Now, there is a lot to that because, again, there are a lot of balls in the air, and I encourage you once again to keep in mind when it is you're watching this video. To win the NFC East, the Dallas Cowboys have to beat the Washington Commanders, and the New York Giants have to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. I know it's a lot to kind of take in, but it's 2 simple things at this point. The list is down to 2, and the Green Bay Packers, by the way, are scoring right behind you as I'm having this conversation. They are a relevant part of this whole mix. You will soon find out. But 2 things left for the Dallas Cowboys to win the NFC East. Dallas beats Washington, and New York beats Philadelphia. Where does Green Bay come into this mix? Well, the Washington Commanders lost to the Green Bay Packers today on Sunday afternoon. They are eliminated from playoff contention if the Green Bay Packers win. This touchdown, I think it's a kickoff return. It is. The Green Bay Packers are now up 6-3 with an extra point pending. Again, maybe they wind up losing this game. But if the Packers do win today, they eliminate the Washington Commanders from playoff contention. So the Commanders could have absolutely nothing to play for, not have a postseason berth, be totally, completely checked out. Maybe Ron Rivera pulls Carson Wentz, who he started over Taylor Heineke on Sunday. Maybe they play Sam Howell to kind of get a look at him before the offseason and answering a lot of questions as an organization, obviously. But the point is, if the Green Bay Packers win, and we've been talking about them maybe getting into the playoffs, if they win because the Commanders lost themselves on Sunday, then Washington is eliminated, which sets the Cowboys up with a nice position to win their game. But again, Dallas still needs New York to take care of business and to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, here's the thing. The New York Giants won as well on Sunday. They destroyed the Indianapolis Colts. And in doing so, the Giants not only clinched a playoff berth, their first since 2016, but the New York Giants are locked. They cannot improve their playoff positioning next week. Their playoff positioning cannot worsen no matter what happens to the New York Giants in week 18 on the road against the Philadelphia Eagles. They are going to be the 6th seed in the NFC. They are going to visit whoever the 3 seed is in the NFC. And obviously, a lot of that is going to change. It could be the Cowboys. Honestly, it could be the Eagles. It can't be the Eagles, but it could be the Cowboys. It all depends on what also happens with the San Francisco the San Francisco 49ers and the Minnesota Vikings. But the point here is, as it relates back to the Cowboys, because we got to kind of bring this back. We're all getting excited. Again, there's so many hypotheticals in the air. The New York Giants have nothing to play for. The Eagles, all they have to do is next week beat the Giants, who have nothing to play for. And the Eagles clinch the NFC East and the number 1 seed in the NFC. So in a weird way, this division and this conference that has been dominated by the Eagles and the Cowboys and obviously other teams, but specifically the NFC East, it's going to come down to the Giants and how much do the Giants want to play? Do they want to play their starters? Do they want to not play their starters? Do they want to take advantage of the fact that they have nothing to play for and rest? Because here's the thing. Now that the Eagles have lost every other NFC contender for the 1 seed, which not only includes the Dallas Cowboys, but includes the Minnesota Vikings and the San Francisco 49ers, any one of those teams could be the teams that the New York Giants face in the wild card round. The Giants could decide to rest, and whoever they're going to visit in the wild card round won't be resting next week because the Eagles still have to get this win. So it's a really complicated thing. We've seen different teams handle it different ways in NFL history, whether they rest, whether they go for it, whatever the case may be. But something I do think is important, and I mentioned it this week on the NFC East mixtape, the Giants kind of have a weird score to settle with the Philadelphia Eagles, and you might remember this if you've been watching the NFL for the last couple of years. Very quickly, 2 years ago, the 2020 season, the New York Giants were 6-10, and they beat the Dallas Cowboys in the final week of the regular season to get that 6th win of the year. Had the Washington football team at the time lost to the Philadelphia Eagles, that game was on Sunday Night Football, New York would have won the division. Yes, with a 6-10 record. It was a really bad year for the division. But you might recall that the then Doug Peterson-led Eagles, with then Jalen Hurts as a rookie, kind of backed off as the game unfolded. The Eagles tanked, obviously, in that game, whatever word you want to use. They picked up a higher draft pick out of it. That all led to all sorts of things, the drafting of Devontae Smith, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Doug Peterson, obviously, is no longer the Eagles head coach. Sorry, I'm watching the Red Zone channel, and Cam Akers had a big run. I'm going up against him in my fantasy championship. But anyway, the Eagles kind of tanked that game. For lack of a better word, they tanked. The Washington football team won the division. They went on to the playoffs, and the New York Giants were left out in the cold. The Giants were very, very, very upset about it. To be clear, personally, I think it's silly that the Giants were upset about not winning the division with a 6-10 record, but the Giants went into that game, that Sunday night game, the final game of the regular season in 2020, and they were rooting, obviously, for the Eagles to beat Washington so they could win the division, but they felt like Philadelphia did not really give them a huge shot at that. So obviously, it's different staffs. Joe Judge isn't here anymore. It's Brian Daboll. But a lot of the players are the same. Right? A lot of the players who were really upset with the Eagles as a franchise. Again, if we're at the place or at a point where we're having to examine all sorts of tentacles here, because this is a crazy situation with everything that could change over the course of just 7 days now in the NFL. But it is possible that the Giants feel like, you know what? Let's play for it. You know what? Let's not rest starters. They took our playoff spot away. Let's take the number 1 seed away from them. And of course, it's worth mentioning that even if they play their starters, the Giants might not win. Jalen Hurts might return. There are a lot of factors at play in this game. The New York Giants very famously in week 17 of the 2007 season played to win against a New England Patriots team that was undefeated at the time. Neither team had anything to play for, but they put together an incredible game. The Giants obviously lost, but wound up beating the same team in the Super Bowl. So you just don't know. You never know how this thing is going to go. You never know what each team is going to protect, but the Giants are in a weird position here. So to recap, the Dallas Cowboys still alive for the NFC East, for the number 1 seed in the conference. They need a Cowboys win. They need an Eagles loss. If those things happen, they can win the division, but they can still win the division while not being the number 1 seed in the NFC. To get the number 1 seed, the Cowboys also need a Vikings loss and a 49ers loss. Those two teams, I mentioned the Packers are playing. They're playing the Vikings at Lambeau Field. Those two teams are playing right behind you as I put this video together. At this moment, there are 13 minutes left in the second quarter. The Raiders are up 10-7 over the 49ers. If the Cowboys pick these up, they improve their positioning, obviously only if they win the division. The San Francisco 49ers have already won the NFC West. The Minnesota Vikings have already won the NFC North. The Cowboys cannot surpass them as far as playoff positioning is concerned if they do not win the NFC East. So even if both of them lost their final 2 games, the Vikings and the 49ers, if the Cowboys don't win, if the Cowboys don't get that Eagles loss in week 18, it's all for naught. It doesn't impact Dallas. Dallas is still the 5 seed, the top wild card team in the NFC. So let me get this banner up here. I didn't have this one prepared. This is important. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday afternoon won the NFC South. What does this have to do with everything, RJ? I'm so confused. This is a lot of information you're throwing at me. The Buccaneers winning the NFC South is important because the Bucs are now the only division-winning team in the NFC. The Niners winning the NFC West, the Vikings the North, the Eagles or Cowboys are going to win the NFC East. The Vikings are the only one of those 4 division winners because let me stop. Let me back up here. The Buccaneers have nothing to play for in Week 18. They are locked into the 4 seed in the NFC. They have no reason to risk anything in Week 18. If they want, they can treat this as a bye. The only 2 teams in the NFC who are in that position are the Bucs. They will be the 4 seed. They will host a playoff game, and the Giants, as we talked about, they are the 6 seed. So those 2 teams are locked. Everybody else is still subject to potentially moving here, there, wherever. But the Buccaneers are the team who the Dallas Cowboys will play if the Cowboys do not win the NFC East. Remember, those 2 things have to happen. Dallas wins, Philly loses in Week 18. So it is possible that the Bucs rest their starters in Week 18. The Cowboys play their starters because they want to win the division and they want the number 1 seed. The Cowboys win, and they ultimately still don't win the NFC East because the Eagles take care of business against the Giants, and then Dallas has to go play a Tampa team that was resting its starters, et cetera, et cetera. Again, all of that is hypothetical. We still have to kind of see how this week unfolds. If it isn't obvious, there's a lot of information still to be gleaned, but this is everything that is relevant at the time to Dallas Cowboys fans, and it's our job to bring it to you. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. My name is RJ Ochoa. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at RJ Ochoa, on TikTok at RJ.Ochoa. You can send me an email, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com, or you can leave a comment here, and we'll do our best to get there. But huge week for the Cowboys, getting the win, the Eagles losing. Those are the 2 most important things. It would have been great had the Bucs lost. That did not happen, but everything is still alive. And it puts into perspective really how valuable that Cowboys win over Philadelphia was on Christmas Eve. Because had the Eagles won that game, I mean, they would have probably, approached their game against New Orleans very differently, right? The Eagles would have just said, you know what, we don't need this game. The Eagles would have clinched the NFC East. They would have clinched the number 1 seed in the NFC. They would have had obviously not a lot to play for. And so it goes to show how wild things can be in the NFL with just one sort of flap of the butterfly's wings. But that's all we have for today. Again, remember the time I told you that I put this together. It is now 3:48 p.m. Central Standard Time. You probably know at the time you're watching this whether or not the Vikings or Packers won, whether the 49ers won, whatever the case may be. But we'll keep you updated, of course, every day. And it's going to be a very fun week here at Blogging the Boys. Make sure to like the video, subscribe, and have a wonderful day. Happy New Year.